The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Access Television, the City of Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Cable Television Advisory Commission, or Time Warner Cable.
Welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm Cheryl Hentz, along with my co-host, former Oshkosh Mayor and City Councilwoman Melanie Bloechl. We're going to be talking about a few different things tonight, all city issues, but the first one we want to talk about would be the mayoral election that we have coming up on Tuesday, November 2nd. Joining us on this edition are two city council members, Paul Esslinger to my immediate left, which I'm sure most people recognize them. I don't have to necessarily point them out, but I will, just because it's what I do. And next to him is Brian Poeschl. Thanks, guys, for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us on.
Obviously, you know, the four of us have been involved in this movement to get an elected mayor. It's not the kind of mayor that we wanted at all. It is not a strong mayor of any shape, form, or fashion, but it's a baby step toward getting us where we want to go. I guess one of the things that I've been disappointed, well, first of all, I've been disappointed by the Northwestern and their coverage of this or lack thereof. And then when they do have some coverage, you know, they say that it's the buzz has faded. But, you know, really, what was there for any of us to be doing during this time? I mean, it wasn't something where we really needed to be educating people a whole lot, nor did we need to be spending a lot of money on this effort. I mean, I think that people in this community have pretty much said, this is what we want. And I guess we'll see come November 2nd if it indeed is what they want. But, you know, what have your thoughts been as far as the coverage that there has been?
Well, I mean, actually what we have, what's going to be on the ballot isn't what it was wanted at the town hall meeting that I had. But, you know, as far as the coverage, yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, there's no coverage whatsoever. And then when the coverage comes out, then it's nobody cares about this, so you know, why are we doing this? And no, I mean, I don't think there's any need to spend any money on this. I mean, we've beaten it to death at the council meetings, at a workshop, at a town hall meeting. So I mean, we've had enough coverage on it, and it's just electing the mayor. And if I can take a couple extra minutes here, last Sunday, we're taping this on the 14th. Last Sunday, Vida Allen wrote a letter to the editor. Her husband wrote one previous to that.
Peter Allen, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
He did the personal attacks, and now she does the rhetoric. You know, he said that this is all about me, and this is the reason I'm doing this.
Well, let me just stop you, because we definitely want to touch on that. But, Brian, what have your thoughts been on this whole thing?
As far as the coverage?
Yeah.
First of all, the coverage, I think the Northwestern, yes, it hasn't been covered very well that way. And as far as, you're right, the article that was in, as far as that, they say it's faded. I can say that since I've been in office, there's two things that I get asked about every week in the public, and so the coverage may not be there, but with how long they've been talked about is still the smoking issue and the mayor issue. So I mean, the coverage may not have been there, but I think we got enough coverage of the council meetings, of the petitions we tried to get signed out there in the public area, and that week after week, I think that since I started the mayor issue, it actually had more council meetings about that than the smoking issue. So those two are what people talk about every time I see them. So
there's still, I mean, just because we haven't been out there holding more town hall meetings like you did, or going door to door like we were originally with the petition drive before we stopped that to pursue another avenue here, that doesn't mean that people are no longer interested.
No.
Well, I think, and you tell me if I'm wrong here, but from my perspective, as I watched this thing kind of unfold, you know, Brian had his proposal That was played around with at nauseum. Then Frank Tower brought up his ridiculous proposal. Then Paul, you tried to have town hall meetings and you did all these things. Basically what happened here is the worst kind of political spin that there is, and it's called dumbing it down. I mean, they took a proposal. Brian, you tried to do the tough approach and say, you know, let's go for the whole enchilada. Paul, you came back and said, Brian was right. This is what the people are saying that they wanted, and my town hall meeting showed it by percentages. We were able to document it through your town hall meeting. So, you know, you just reinforced what Brian was trying to do back and forth, and then the council came back and dumbed it down and said, you know,
you guys are wrong.
I realize that you guys think that you have a pulse on what's going on because you dare to actually go out and talk to people, and you actually dared to hold the town hall meeting. But we think we know better. Well, what it is it's the fear factor. They don't want people to have that much say-so. Jesus, if we had that much say-so, can you imagine what could happen to them?
Right.
And that's where people ask me, they said, well, you know, why did you vote for that possibility? And I tell people, I said, well, granted, it wasn't what I started, it wasn't what Paul wanted, but at least I feel that it's a step in the right direction, and things will happen from that. So I had to vote yes, because otherwise you're back to square one again until next April.
Exactly.
Well, and the point of the whole thing is giving people a choice. You know, I still wish that, as I think we all do, that the council had not been such a bunch of chicken people. Yeah, I was going to say something else, but I had to kind of watch myself there. Yeah, didn't want to get buzzed. If they hadn't been chickens, we would have had something on the ballot that actually was substantive.
Yeah.
You know, and had some meaning. And then, you know, like Mayor Harris always says, you know, got to have a mandate. Well, put it on the ballot and see what the people have to say, and then you'll have your mandate.
But see, we did all the council stuff. Now we're into the next phase, and that gets back into the the letters, the Allens. Now you had the rhetoric about it's all about me, and now the next one is, why would we want to pay a salaried person to do this part-time here?
Well,
we are now.
Yeah, exactly.
The dollar amount does not change at all.
And that was Vida Allen's letter to the editor.
Yes.
That was her comment, is that, you know, why should we have to pay a salary to a part-time mayor when we have 7 city council members? Obviously, Mrs. Allen doesn't get it.
No.
Either because she doesn't want to get it, or because she just simply can't comprehend what has been going on here. I don't know what it is, but maybe she's missed something along the way, but there has obviously been a disconnect, and I don't mean disrespect toward her, but truly there has been a disconnect, I think, between what has happened and what Mrs. Allen has comprehended has happened.
Right.
Because we are not going to be spending any more money if the mayor gets elected.
Well,
all it is the people electing the mayor rather than 7 council members.
I think I said on the last show, when you don't understand an issue, bring up personal attacks, and just bring up something, the rhetoric. And that's the next phase. That's what we're into here.
Here's what I don't understand about the letter to the editor, and everybody's got a right to an opinion. We've all got them. Some just stink more than others. But good for you. You got an opinion. But here's what I don't understand about people like Vida Allen and their comments. Vida Allen in particular was one of the people who came up to the city council and demanded that the city council get involved in the private business of restaurateurs and making sure that there was a smoking ban. Was very adamant about the support for that and felt as though that was certainly within your charge to go into private business and dictate and legislate.
Right.
Okay. The same lady is telling the general public, the voting constituents, that they shouldn't have a say-so in who their leaders are.
Right.
Their elected leader.
Right.
That this choice should be limited to 7 people. Well, see, I'm not understanding this because the majority of the city council said that they did not want a smoking ban. That ban lost. So by virtue of that, if Mrs. Allen had her choice, direct legislation should have never taken place then, because you guys should have been able to decide the total legislation. That didn't occur. We did have direct legislation. She supported that as well, but would deny the voters of the city of Oshkosh to choose who would hold the bully pulpit
Right.
and drive the vision and the leadership of this community for the next 2 years potentially.
Right.
3 years potentially.
Well, I mean, imagine
Why,
if you will.
does that seem to make any sense, or
that's
am I
hypocrisy,
like
but-
stretching here?
Imagine,
No,
if you will, if we went to the citizens of the United States and said, you know what, we don't think that you should be able to vote for the President of the United States. We think that you, or the legislature, should just put a president in there because they know better what a president does than the public.
Sure, and they work with them more closely.
Exactly. And the
So
mayor, why
there's-
should we vote for, I'm sorry, a governor? Why should we vote for a governor? Because I don't know what a governor does. Maybe we should just have the state legislature just put in a governor
And the state senate.
and the state senate.
Let's just have them all, you know, kind of elect their own person.
And if you seriously suggested that to people, they look at you like you were absolutely crazy. But in the city of Oshkosh, we don't. There are some people out there, believe it or not, that don't want to vote for a mayor. That's baffling.
Well, it's, again, like Mel said, it's the fear factor. They don't understand it. Some of them are thinking back to years and years and years ago when there was a lot of horse trading going on under a mayoral aldermanic district. But I don't care what people say. I believe that there's horse trading going on
Cheryl,
right now.
I'm here to tell you.
No, and these guys know, right?
Well, as would you.
Yeah,
I've
mean,
not
we
served on
know.
the city council, but I can tell you that I feel with every ounce that I have in my body that there is horse trading going on, and I don't care whether they're all elected at large or not. There's horse trading going on, and yet, as the point is that I have made time and time and time again on this show, is that you take a look at the other cities in this state, just right here in this immediate area, that have a mayoral, aldermanic form of government. They're doing heads and tails better than we are.
The crowd I love the best, and I've heard from a couple of these people, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
But by whose standards isn't it
Theirs,
broke?
I guess. I don't know
We
what
are all going broke.
Yeah.
You know, that's what's broke.
Yeah, I'm
is our
going broke,
damn
so I wanna fix it.
pocketbooks.
Well, guys, what was broke in Riverside Park? We had to fix that, right? It was a beautiful riverfront. That evidently something was broke there. What was
Right.
broke?
Looks kind of broken right now if you go
Well,
by there to me.
and not to be disrespectful, and you know, a lot of this is being done tongue in cheek and ample sprinklings of sarcasm. But this is what I don't understand: is we should all be entitled to differences of opinion. We should all be able to come up and say what it is that we have to say. But when you see letters that say, you know, we should only have 7 people making choices for all of us, why? What makes those? And please remember that during council elections, historically, depending on what rotation they're coming into, you maybe have 10% of the population voting. So 10% of the people should decide what the majority wants for leadership. Now, if that isn't an inspiration to get off your dead rear ends, off the couch, when you have people saying, don't worry, I know what's good for you.
Yeah.
Honestly, I do. Just sit back, relax, I'll take care of everything. And I can only hope that people are going to change their voting prowess and actually start doing it.
I would hope
Well, that's one of the reasons that we pushed for something to get on the November ballot, is so that more people would be at the polls because of the presidential election. And yet, you know, we've got the Northwestern saying that the presidential election is overshadowing this issue. And I'm sure that they're getting that from Mr. Harris, because that was his reason for wanting to put it on in April.
Well, that was his stated reason, but there's another reason behind that, why he wanted it
Well,
on
of
next
course.
April.
I was just simply being kind
I know,
by
I
quoting
realize that.
him.
I realize
Well,
that.
and really, why wouldn't you want, I mean, if you look at this from a logical standpoint, and you really want to know what the majority of your constituents, the taxpayers of this community, want and think, why would you not put it on the most popularly attended and participated election that there was? Why would you not do that?
Because there's political reasons why you don't want to do that.
Yeah, and we know what those are. We know what those are. We really don't want those numbers to show
That's right.
that the Reich isn't as popular as what we think it is. And see, we've got this momentum going. See, that's the other thing. You watch the newspapers, people. I mean, really, seriously, watch this. This is a phenomenon that's bar none. And I know the people who actually read the paper and are watching this are not ignorant to this. But it's actually kind of fun to draw it to people's attention, and then they kind of go, But it's been very interesting to kind of watch this metamorphosis of the whole downtown redevelopment and kind of what has happened, like who got the contracts and who's getting things done. And then the other fun part is to watch the coverage, because of course the Northwestern thinks this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, because my office has to be down on State Street and it helps us. And oh, by the way, in case anybody didn't know, we also happen to be on the committee who thinks this is a great idea. It's very frustrating from somebody, and you know, we're always teased all the time, and I think the three of us probably have that a lot. I know before you guys came on, I was, you know, the person who was charged with a conspiracy theory, you know, ooh, alien kind of thing. And we know that that stuff is happening. We know that there are people that are going into the city manager's office that are talking to certain council members on golf courses or wherever, boardrooms. We know that's happening because we hear about it. And what's really funny is some of the council members aren't even shy about telling you, well, you know, so-and-so came up and talked to me and they really would like us to investigate this.
Sure.
I mean, it happens. It happens.
Well, you know, when we were talking about the Riverside project, the one that just got passed.
The don't broke, don't fix it thing.
Yeah, you know, when they called me and they said they wanted to meet with me down at Sierra Meyer, John and Gala.
Who they are.
Well, John and Gala was there, Phil Martini was there, Rob Clayman was there, John Casper was there.
Do you hear ding, ding,
People
ding?
from the chamber. People
chamber,
from
right,
C.R.
right.
Meyer, who coincidentally got the contract.
Got the bid.
The
But now,
meetings
you know,
held at his office.
John and Gala called me, and I had to tease him. I said, you must have picked the short straw to have to call me. And he was very respectful. I'll say he was very respectful. And he said, hey, look, you know, we just want to talk to you. But, you know, I got there, and I knew before I got there what it was all about. I knew before I got there was going to be 5 votes on it. I knew before I got there who was going to be there, and it played out like they were. I mean, the hand was shown.
It was a big dog and pony show.
It was a dog and pony show.
Did you feel like they should maybe hand you pom-poms, or that they were going to break into a routine like, go, Paul, go,
well,
come on,
the thing that I
Polly.
liked is they explained that they wanted a 7-0 vote
Yep.
on it, and what I should have said is I want a 7-0 vote too, the other way.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, and that's the thing. They want this idea that there's consensus, because when I was on the committee, when we were first choosing who was going to be the LDR, the design concept people for the downtown, that's the first thing that they said in this meeting is, even if you don't necessarily like LDR or whoever you pick, we all have to agree that they're going to be the people. Well, there was another individual in this committee meeting, and it was Jane Vandeham, myself, and we didn't like LDR's concept. We liked another concept, and the whole approach to really getting the people involved in finding private funding and the full package, okay, was laid out. And the first thing, so we took votes, you know, these little votes, who do you like, who do you like? And of course, we were, I think, the only 2 that didn't go along with this, because of course they had handpicked all these people on this committee. They knew what they wanted to see before it even happened. So Jean and I got the hammer put on us, well, you know, we need full consensus. You have to go along with this. And the only reason that I even conceded to that was because one of the elements of all this was that there was this huge promise that the concept was just a vague one, and that the public would have so much input, and that it would be developed. This was just something that they had laid out kind of, you know, rough draft. But the public would have all this input, and other concepts would be brought in. Did anybody ever ask you what you thought? I mean, you're on the council, but I mean, I don't know one single citizen that was ever approached and said, you know, what do you think?
Well, not only that, Melanie, but I mean, when these were coming up before the council, we had citizens coming up speaking against it, and it just went right straight over people's heads. They didn't care less.
Yeah.
Well, they don't seem to care about anything that
But
people say.
Now we have an amphitheater, and now we're looking at what we're going to do with that, and that was the subject on Tuesday of a workshop meeting.
Yeah. I want to still stay on this mayoral thing for a moment or two, because there were a few comments in this article in the Northwestern, this was from the 7th of October, that I found rather interesting, and one of them was from Bill Castle, one of our city council members. And, you know, he's not sure that people have much interest in the referendum, let alone, it says let along an elected mayor. I think that's a typo on the part of the Northwestern. It should be let alone an elected mayor. I didn't understand that statement, because, I mean, the referendum is for an elected mayor, so I don't know what the let alone part really means. But in any event, he's got a quote here that says that, among other things, I was hoping there would be some kind of movement to make sure there's a strong message sent that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, when I read this, I had a movement. But I don't think that would be the kind that Mr. Castle wanted either. But, you know, see, he's hopeful for a movement of some kind. Well, then why didn't he start one?
Yeah.
If he's, you know, did you guys understand this at all?
Well, I mean, he was heavily involved in a movement, was it 5-6 years ago, against the district thing, which actually I was actually on board with that at that time. But you know, hey, Bill, you know, if you want to do something, you got to get off your butt and do it yourself. Kind of like we did here. I mean, we wanted to do something, and you got to put the time and you got to do the work.
Well, and I'll tell you, we've said it all along. If this does not start us on the path to where we need to go, we are going to be back, and we will move forward with something that is going to get this city headed in the right direction, because we can't keep heading down this path that we're on right now. I found it interesting that, what was that guy's name? Leon Schaefer, was that his name?
Yes.
Who came up at the council meeting Tuesday night and called for the resignation of all the other council members. He called for the resignation of the Fab Five, basically, and for
Dick Walling.
Dick Walling's resignation, too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the citizens in this community are upset, and these council members, their eyes just glaze over. They don't care.
I think it's interesting that the Fab Five ticket's stuck, don't you?
And Cheryl, is that the same article that he talked about how he's worried about the council having to appoint someone if someone...
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
because,
that isn't there.
you know, I'm just sitting here going, he was on the council back when Melanie took over and he had to appoint someone.
Yes.
And I thought he was big in charge of the person from the planning commission at that time to get him on there. But my point of that was, I think, well, you know what? I think everyone who's up for re-election should run for the mayor, and then whoever wins, see if the rest get appointed for the seat again.
And Melanie, now you were on the council when Mr. Walling went into the city manager position.
Correct.
Now,
And
was it an agonizing thing to do to have to fill that spot for a year?
Not at all.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
It really wasn't at all. I mean, you know, there was consideration given to the next person in line.
Right.
And then John Rupenthal was spoken to.
On the Plan Commission, I
was
believe,
on
at
the
that
Plan
time.
Commission. And John did an excellent job.
Yeah.
I mean, John was a great representative. People really liked him on the Plan Commission. He was very respectful, very kind, very... every decision that he took upon himself, you could tell it was very thoughtful in his deliberation.
Well, but the fact of the matter is, Mr. Castle was on the council at that
Absolutely,
time.
and
He
he-
fully supported Mr. Walling leaving the council to go
Yes.
to the city. He knew that he had to fill,
It
or
was
the
his
council had to fill that
suggestion to go
spot.
in that direction for Mr.
So it's
Walling.
okay at that point in time, but now it's not okay.
Well, and let's talk about the leap that we made. A city council member leaping to a city manager's position
That's
with
right.
really no experience.
That's right.
Versus a city council member leaping to a mayoral position, which adds no responsibility.
Right.
I mean, you know, you take a gentleman like Mr. Walling, who I support. I mean, I think he's done a good job. I supported him then. I support him now. Are there things that we disagree on? Dick will gladly give you a list. But that was a huge leap. And Mr. Castle, it was actually his suggestion that we look at Dick Woolink after spending an enormous amount of time going through a large volume of applicants, a large volume of applicants. Mr. Castle was the one who brought that to the table.
Yeah.
So I find it a little interesting that we seem to be concerned about the general public having some say-so as to who the leader of the council may be, but Mr. Castle felt perfectly in line and perfectly comfortable taking a council member with no input from the constituents whatsoever and plunking him into a city manager's role. That really there was no kind of managerial experience in that.
The irony here also is, now you and 6 other council members had to decide on who the city manager was going to be.
Correct.
How much do you know about being at that time, how much did you know about being a city manager?
Absolutely zero, and
Right.
some of the contestants for the position knew absolutely zero.
So those 7 council members, it was perfectly okay for you guys to hire the person that's going to be running the city,
Correct.
knowing virtually little to nothing about that position. But the same people, some of these people on the council now are saying to the residents of the city of Oshkosh, you shouldn't be able to elect a mayor because we know more about the mayor position than you do.
Well, and
I find that troubling.
And I think that's an excellent point. It really is an excellent point, because really when you think about it, coming onto the council, we come from very different backgrounds, but we're part-time help at best. You know, our disclosure on any given issue on the council is made up of bits and pieces and documentation given to us by an administration we can only believe is giving us accurate information.
Absolutely.
I mean, we do not have the time nor the wherewithal to check every single fact, every single number. It would be a full-time job while you're trying to do another full-time job. So you have to have some sort of faith in the fact that the people that you've hired and put in place are actually giving you accurate information. However, it is still incumbent upon you to do some homework. Now, my concern here is that just what you said, Paul. Why is it not a problem for 7 lay people to place an individual in such high responsibility as the city manager?
High dollar responsibility.
High dollar, high responsibility. I mean, we're talking about over 65,000 people, their taxes, their money, and the future of this community, its development, because this individual will be in charge of every administrator that there is. So it's not just knowing what the city manager does. It's knowing what do each of these departments do, and where is this money going, and where do I get grants from? Where do I get federal dollars from? How do I get PECFA funds to clean up contamination? What the hell is a brownfield initiative? You know, if they don't have some of that background knowledge, now they're counting on the same administrators that they're supposed to be the boss of. So we better hope that our administration is as good, if not better, than what we thought it was, because we have a city manager that was a novice. And Mr. Castle, and none of those people had a problem with that.
Right.
None of them.
Well, and just one other thing, talking about Mr. Castle still. One of his other comments was, that he thinks that most people are going, oh, I forgot all about this being on the ballot. And I think they'll probably just have to make a decision on the spot. Like, people haven't thought about this. Like, this has not been discussed. This has been discussed for how many years? You know, if you really want to get right down to it. And certainly in this last 6 to 9 months, it has been discussed at length. But if he was so concerned about people being, you know, having more time to think about it and be aware of it, why didn't he offer to hold a town hall meeting? Why was it left up to you? Why was it left up to either one of you to do anything? Why did we as a group go out and start trying to educate people on why we need a change? He could have helped educate people.
And Cheryl, there's nothing that prohibits him from doing that in the future. I mean, there's still several weeks before the election. There's certainly nothing that precludes him or Mr. Harris or anyone from holding meetings to inform the public as to what this could mean, what it doesn't mean, what the question will look like. I mean, they are the leaders of this community. They certainly have an opportunity and an obligation to do what they think needs to be done.
Well, you mentioned what the question looks like, and I think that may be a little problematic, because the question is, shall the City of Oshkosh Municipal Code be amended to provide for a part-time salaried mayor nominated and elected from the city at large for a 2-year term? Now that is, I think, a little misleading. It tends to mislead people into thinking that this is going to be an extra position that's been created. And maybe that is where Vida Allen is getting confused. Maybe she hasn't watched all the city council meetings. She certainly was not at the town hall meeting. You know, maybe she's just looking at that and maybe she's getting confused. But I think that's a misleading question. I don't like the way it's worded, and that's why I think, you know, having seen that, you know, that was the first time I saw how the question was going to be worded. And I think that is problematic to a point.
I actually knew that was going to be in there prior to that, and I was emailing the city staff, the city attorney, and they basically said that really should be in there because it is a salaried position, and they don't want to get into another situation like we had with the Breathe Free, where the question would be ambiguous and someone could take it to court and have it thrown out.
I still think they could, Paul.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not an attorney. I just had to go by what they recommended, and I didn't particularly like it either.
But every one of your positions is a salaried position.
That's true.
Every council member has a salaried position.
That's true.
And that's why that's misleading, is because why wasn't the question just as simple as, shall the municipal code be amended so that the electorate, I can't say that, chooses the mayor?
Because one could argue then that you're choosing a mayor and you're not paying the mayor. You're not saying that the mayor is going to be paid.
Well, that's fine, but then they could have expanded this and just said, you know, this does not create an additional position or whatever.
I disagree. I don't think they should put that in there. I think that's politicking. That's massaging aside, I think.
No, I see, you and I disagree there, Paul, because
I would like them to do that, but I don't think it would be proper.
I think it's full disclosure. It's because this tends to make it look like there is another position being
I don't
created.
disagree with that. I think
and
it does
I think
too.
to explain to people that it is not creating another position, I think that's more fair. And if you think about it, I mean, you were at the court hearing in Judge Key's courtroom when some of the stuff was coming down about Breathe Free Oshkosh.
Right.
And one of her reasons for giving a temporary restraining order, if you recall, was that the question did not, on the ballot, did not accurately reflect what was actually happening. And I don't think that this accurately reflects what's actually happening.
Probably argue that, yeah.
So, you know, I think it needs to be tweaked, but I don't think that that's obviously possible at this stage of the game. The ballots are probably already printed.
I think they're here.
They're already here.
Yeah,
Yes.
so...
Will we have enough?
Well, Milwaukee, I think, will have enough. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yeah,
well,
that's why I was asking, because I was watching the Milwaukee News Channel, and what did they want? Some, like, 900,000 ballots or some such thing?
Yeah, and they have about 300,000 people voting.
Yeah.
Or so.
253,000 voted last presidential election, and now they want 900. Hey, you know, it's only taxpayers' money. What's an extra 40 G's when, you know, you're counting...
Maybe they know someone at the printing place and they can get them a few extra bucks.
I know people at printing places, and I never got nothing for a few less bucks.
Well, I think we just need to, you know, do our part now. Now that we've seen how the question's worded, I think we just need to do our part to explain to people that this is not creating an extra position. This is doing nothing to change the structure of the city council or how much anyone on the city council is being paid. It is simply you, the voter, being able to say, this is who I want as a mayor. That's it. No extra position, no additional dollars being spent. That's all this does. So, all right. So, let's talk about the amphitheater.
All right.
Okay.
I think I need to sit up for this one.
What, you know, we've been hearing people getting rather upset about the $600,000 commodes that are going in down there.
The golden commodes, as I like to call them.
Yeah. You know, more and more people have, it's interesting, I was out for lunch last Friday and I had a couple come up to me and they were just so outraged about it, it wasn't even funny. I know some people have written letters to the editor about it. I think there have even been some people coming up to City Hall talking about it, haven't they? At the council meeting?
Oh, at the council meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So there was a workshop held the other night. What's the upshot of the workshop?
The upshot is I guess, gave the city administration the go-ahead to look at having a professional promoter be responsible for getting the events here for the amphitheater, and the Parks Department would be responsible for the concessions, the concession part of the agreement.
And Brian, is that what Tom Stefani wants the Grand Opera House to take over?
Well, I didn't know that until I read it in the paper as you did, because at our workshop there were never any names mentioned.
Oh, I didn't read it in the paper.
That's where on Wednesday morning's article was where it mentioned as far as that possibility of the Grand Opera House being like a promoter.
Ah.
Okay, that was the first I heard of it.
Oh, so they're going to be the promoter?
Well,
Possibly.
We don't know. That's
Mr.
one
Stefani was saying there are several people,
several contacts
locally that he believes could run it, and one of those was the Grand Opera House.
So we're not sure if it's to handle the concessions or just the
No, the
promotion.
concessions
the
of
parks are
out
going to
of
be
it.
handled by the concession.
Okay,
Concessions
so
are the
he's not
parks.
going to farm that out.
No, and the concessions, do make a lot of money, so that probably would be something that we can do, and then the money would be ours, would be the city's. But the concern that I have is that we put a request for proposals out for these individuals to run it, and that get reviewed. And I think the council should be ultimately responsible for who we hire professionally to get those acts in here. I mean, I know at least one promoter that I've worked with personally on the advertising side that runs an event that we all know about that seems to do a very, very nice job. And I'm concerned with other suggestions that we have. So, but everyone has a chance at it. They get to put in a request. Hopefully, if that's the way we do it, when they come back, they get reviewed and we pick the best one.
Well, why would they not put this out for proposals, requests for proposals?
That's the $64,000 question.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it should be.
Yeah,
It just seems like it
absolutely.
should be. Why do you think that it won't be?
Because I think that there may be some people that they feel that can do it already, and we don't need to go through the process of putting out requests.
Can they legally do that?
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, you're talking about a multi-million-dollar facility. What is and this is a question that I have simply because I don't know, at what monetary level, and see, all you council people would know this.
I'm an ex-council person. You
Well-
can't hold me responsible.
But you can still be called Mayor Bloechl, just
correct.
like a former president.
Posthumously.
So yeah, well, no, she's not dead yet.
I thought once you left the council, you're dead.
Now, sometimes you feel dead when you're on the council, I guess.
There you go.
See, now I'm losing my train of thought here, guys. At what monetary level does the law say you have to put it out for requests for proposals?
Again, I don't know if they have to do that, but I would think that if it's dealing with public money and you're going to look at a professional doing it, I don't think there should be a money amount. It should just be anyone. If a city is going out to look at doing something with a professional, like our roads, I mean, we shouldn't just pick someone because we like them. Although we did with, I think it was our playground equipment. We waived the bids.
Yes.
We waived the bid. We didn't waive bids.
We just went with the same company.
Yeah, we waived the rules to put them out for bids and just use the same company. So I think, now that I'm thinking about it, if we wanted one particular person, it would have to come to the council and say, let's waive the rules on putting this out to bid. Let's use promoter X. We
Right.
feel that promoter X can do it better. So I'm pretty sure that they would have to go out for proposals.
Well, let's hope so.
I hope so too.
That's the only fair way to do this.
Gentlemen, I've got some questions for you. When this amphitheater was concocted, because it certainly was not planned, I mean, there's nothing about this that was planned. And I'm hoping that the two of you agree with me.
I agree with that.
So when this idea was hatched, concocted, at any juncture during the preliminary stages of this, did anybody say, hey, listen, if we're really going to go into something of this expense, of this vastness, in a location that's so important to our community, which is right on our waterfront, our largest natural resource and commodity in this community, did anybody ever say, hey, how about we sit down and plan for this? who's going to run it? Who's going to maintain it? Who's going to take care of it? How's this going to work in the state of Wisconsin, city of Oshkosh, where, let's face it, gentlemen, 9 months out of the year, we're 6 feet up in our hinder with snow. And we have an outdoor amphitheater. Did anybody in executive session, because obviously this is after the fact, so you can discuss some executive session privilege, anybody talk about any of that?
I had asked some of those questions at C.R. Meyer, and the answers I kept getting was, that's to be answered later on. We just need to get this all approved, like Paul said, where I was at a different one than Paul. They didn't invite both of us to the same one, but as far as that, this is to get everybody's buy-in, to get the vote to be 7-0, to really make this be a popular deal with all the public input of dollars and Leach's donation, and all that stuff will come up later. To that, I've never heard any of those answers given to me yet at all.
So, as council members, because this would cause me a great deal of heartburn and, you know, use of tucks on a regular basis.
Mailbox.
Because nobody thinks about this stuff, or certainly, not that you didn't think about it, and certainly not that you didn't ask, but that the questions were never answered to anyone's satisfaction. We are now in a position where we're reactionary again. We're not proactive to anything. This is strictly a reaction, knee-jerk at best. That we now have an amphitheater that's going up. We're in budgetary lockdown. Again, this is not the first year, this is not the second year. We're working into three and 4 years in a row. A budgetary lockdown, losses in shared revenue, state reimbursements, because you guys are not going to know what the state's going to kick you back for quite some time yet. So, now we have a parks director who is coming forward saying he thinks that potentially one person, a seasonal person, can take care of this entire amphitheater, 7,000 seats, and the $650,000 worth of bathrooms, which have got to be expansive. The talk has been that we will probably have activities Thursday nights, Friday nights, and potentially Saturday nights, maybe even Sunday. Tell me, how does one person seasonally take care of that volume? If just taking care of the bathroom facilities that are going to be required for 7,000 people, not the parking lots that need to be cleaned up, not the amphitheater seating that needs to be cleaned up. Did anybody go over to Marcus Cinema Theater and say, you know, how long does it take one guy to clean up this whole damn theater?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, think about it. You're going to serve concessions, so you're going to have popcorn or food, and you're going to have wrappers all over. You're going to have beer and pop, so you're going to have those containers. You have bathroom facilities. Does this seem conceivable to you that one person is going to be able to take care of that entire property and be able to do it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and oh, by the way, are you paying overtime?
no, it doesn't seem conceivable.
No, and I think that's why Paul asked that question tonight about how many people is going to
You know,
take to
it's
run it.
just the same thing. You know, when you want to do a project, you get a bid, and you have cost overruns. You know, it's the same game. You get someone that wants to have an employee, and they say, well, I can do it with a part-time employee. And then, well, things didn't work out quite the way we thought. We needed to have that person do some overtime, or now we need a full-time person.
And here's my question, Paul, not to interrupt, but because we know that those things happen, and because we know that the planning was non-existent, when this happens, because we know that it's going to happen, will someone be fired for incompetence? Or will it be things happen, we didn't plan, it's the council's fault? The other question that I have for you is, while you were discussing the Leach donation, C.R. Meyer, all these different people who are going to come together, except you didn't talk to the taxpayers very well.
Yeah.
Okay, not you two in particular, but the council. Was there ever a discussion about perpetual maintenance of this particular facility? About ongoing, okay, we've got this big old roof that's going to be out there, okay? Sound systems, electricity, plumbing,
Yeah.
all of the things that go into this, because of course we just had this boondoggle with Pollock Pool after 44 years. We're going to shut that puppy down because we've never put any money into it, and it's just a crap heap now, and we lose. Taxpayers invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we're just going to let it go. Has there been any discussion about perpetual maintenance about this facility and what's going to happen with it?
I think it was Frank Tower, I think, asked, you know, are there going to be funds set aside for any, you know, structural problems that we
funds?
have? Well, taxpayers' funds.
So the Leach Company has not set aside an acorn fund or any kind of fund for perpetual maintenance
That I'm aware
of this facility that will be their namesake.
No.
So they get their name on this huge thing. Not just their namesake. They actually will have their name on this, I'm quite sure.
I don't know.
Well, I would be willing to bet
I think the whole damn park will be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd be
eventually.
willing to bet that it will be. Because after all, Eileen Conley Kiesler said to you at one time that she may need some naming rights down there.
That is correct.
So let's not fool ourselves
That's
here.
correct.
This woman knows exactly what she's doing. She knows exactly what strings to pull. Eileen Conley Kiesler is running this damn city. You know, maybe we
Partially.
should hire her as the
But
city manager.
to get back to what you're talking about, Melanie, were any questions asked about, you know, who's going to run it and all that? Actually, there was. I remember I think it was a workshop, after the C.R. Meyer meetings, they came forward and said to the council, here's the structure, here's what it's going to look like, here's what we want. I think it was Burke Tower, actually, that asked
B Tower.
a lot of good questions. He said, you know, who's going to manage it? What kind of money are we going to make? And those questions were never answered. And I think, like Brian said, well, we'll get back to you on that. Just, you know, pass the money.
They wanted
let's
money.
get the
If we
money,
got
and
money,
then we'll
they'll
figure it
take
out
care of
later.
it.
That's right. B Tower did ask the questions, never got any answers, and yet he voted for it anyway.
And
You know,
his,
that's incompetence. That's just, it's despicable.
and his comment the other night of, well, if you're looking for 7,000, that either won't come or won't happen was just, I couldn't believe it.
Well, here's my concern. We now have what, if we don't find a way to make this work, the next great white elephant or albatross in the downtown. If we as a community don't support this, find a way both financially and physically to support it, it's going to be a huge albatross, which we've already sunken money into with really no asking and no input from us. But how do we make it successful when the majority of your council won't work hard enough to make sure that these questions, these very basic business planning questions, are taken care of before we get to a juncture that there's no going back?
Right.
You have invested millions of our dollars, and there is no working plan for this to succeed. And this comes from the city council's lack of direction. It comes from the administration's lack of effort to get direction. Because here's what's going on, guys. The administration's going, City Council, what do you want us to do? You have to tell us, do you want us to go forward with this? Do you want us to? Okay, we'll go ahead and go do this. And the City Council's going, well, City Administration, what have you found out? Nobody is taking a leadership role, and that's why the constituency picking and electing a mayor is important in this community, because you gotta have that one person that when it all hits the fan, that's the one I'm going after.
Right.
When the buck stops here, because we can't count on the administration because they're waiting for their cues from you.
Yep.
And you guys are part-time at best, and you don't know what the hell's going on with the budget.
That's right.
And nobody's paying attention.
Think of it this way, Melanie. Go down to the bank and tell them that you want to borrow $250,000 to build a house. And they're going to say to you, how much money do you and your husband make? What assets do you have? You know, what do you have in savings?
Right.
And you say to them, you know what? We'll get to that later. Give me the $250,000. I got to get going on this house. I'll come back to you in another month or two and we'll discuss that later. How far do you think you get on that loan?
I've got one better for you, Paul, because the city is supposed to be running as a business. Have they not ever heard of, you know, we got a lawyer, a guy with a law degree sitting on the city council. We've got a big business owner, Mr. Castle, sitting on the city council. If Mr. Castle wanted to expand his business or start a new business, and he needed money to do that, he'd have to put together a business plan. And that business plan can't just simply say, I want $1.5 million from your bank, Mr. Harris, in order to build this expansion. And the bank's just not going to give it to them. They're going to know. They're going to want to know everything. I mean, try and put together a business plan. There is a tremendous amount of stuff that has to go into a business plan, as anyone who's ever done one can tell you.
Yeah.
And you can't just say, "Well, this question, I'll tell you that later. This one, don't know that now, but you know, check back with me in about 6 months. I probably will have an answer for you on that. But please, Mr. Banker, can I have my money today?
No,
or tomorrow?"
no. See, that's where you're wrong. Nobody said please anybody. They said,
well, I'm talking about a bank situation.
Going
I know,
to
in this
take
case,
your money.
Well, and see, I think what the situation you're saying is, and that's why I said before, it was the money situation, because the meeting at C.R. Meyer, which, like I say, and Paul named some of the people that were there, that we all went to, was pretty much that we have all of this public donation, and we have this much that's the donation from Leach for the band shell, and it's going to make all this look beautiful. And that was the beautification project that made them say, oh, that looks awesome, we got to do it. So the money to take care of it, and after that, we know to get taken care of. Everything else does.
Well, that's how we ended up with the fountain downtown,
Right.
which, whether you like it or you don't like it, there were some people who took care of that with some Mr. Bubble and some other things, which we ended up having to put in a new pump system and whatnot.
And I appreciate what you're saying, Brian, in them thinking, or to them, either thinking to themselves or thinking out loud, saying, well, you know, we don't have to worry about that now. It'll get taken care of. Everything else does. Everything else doesn't. Our streets haven't been taken care of, and Pollock Pool wasn't taken care of. 40-some years, that place is here in this community, and that wasn't taken care of, and that's why it had to be shut down, and we now have no place for our kids to go.
Well,
oh, sure, they can go to splash pads if they want, but...
Let's talk about that for a little bit. That's kind of a sore spot with me. We're perfectly willing to close down Pollock Pool, because as you said, Melanie, we haven't put a dime into it since God knows when. And now the argument is, well, we're going to have to subsidize it about $70,000 a year. Do you know something else that we subsidize here in the city of Oshkosh for $70,000 a year?
Yes,
the Grand Opera
Grand Opera House. So we're
that's just taxpayers' share. That's
we're perfectly
not
willing to
motel,
subsidize them $70,000 for people to go and watch plays, and if you like that, that's great. But we can't spend $70,000 a year on kids and adults, quite frankly, going to a pool and enjoying themselves during the summertime.
However, I will say something about the Grand Opera House. You know, the Grand Opera House is owned by the city, and I do believe that the city then has a responsibility to maintain its building.
Then you can say that for
Pool
Pollock
is
Pool.
Well, that's my point.
Right.
And, you know, so we have a responsibility to maintain that, and we had a responsibility to maintain Pollock Pool. And instead, he closes it down, and, well, the committee did, your committee did, and the council, I don't know, is this coming before the council, or has it already?
The Pollock Pool, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, it'll be in the budget.
time.
I
In the
mean,
budget.
if it's not there, then
Well,
it would take a council member to say, I want to put it in there.
Well, I would implore one of the two of you to do it, because frankly, splash pads for kids aren't going to do it.
And now we have one. And here's another thing: we're looking at 3 or 4 more splash pads at $110,000 a piece. So we're gonna spend another $110,000 on a splash pad that we already have, which
no,
about
3
equals.
or 400,000.
Well, I'm just
3 or
saying if we get
400,000.
one,
Yeah.
which we have the same concept. Now we have 2, 3, 4 of the same thing,
Right.
but we're willing to get rid of a totally different concept, something that we've had and people have enjoyed for 40, 50 years.
Right.
I don't get it.
And let's not forget the fact that the splash pads, neat as the one at South Park is, only a segment of your youth population can use it.
Right.
In that situation where, as far as being on the Parks Board, and I voted, they wanted a 5-year budget plan with the 3 different splash pads that were in it. And one of the other big things that they need is some of the basketball courts and tennis courts around town at different places to be done too. And that was where Bill Aiken and myself voted against the 5-year plan, because we both said, as far as like Paulie said, all right, splash pads go up to age 10 or 12 at tops. And even when a guy came up and talked about that, where you're not going to see a 15 or 16-year-old with a splash pad most likely, but it could happen. But as far as they have 3 of them listed in a row, one hopefully West Haven, then Red Arrow, and the north side of the city somewhere. And we tried to stop that because we said that as far as those take care of a certain age group. Basketball courts and tennis courts will be the next age group from 12 or 14 all the way up to adults as far as that goes. And so we tried to change the rotation that let's get those fixed next to try to process. And the rest of the Parks Board wanted to go with the splash pads the way they were listed to be, which would be 3 more. It would be 4 years in a row. The South Park one, which is done, and then 05, 06, and 07 to get 3 more.
But the council has
the
the ultimate authority that you can say, you know what, we're done with splash pads. We're done with this.
Well, I think we should put one more splash pad in, and I say this tongue-in-cheek. Let's put a splash pad in the wolf exhibit. Maybe it would entice the wolves out of their den, so people going there, spending money to get into the zoo, could actually see them.
Good idea.
So we should probably put one more in. You know, this whole thing about this amphitheater thing, they probably would not have had the citizenry so up in arms over this if they had tried. You know, they want consensus. They want a 7-zip vote on the council. Why weren't they concerned about getting the consensus of the city? You know, that's how you build camaraderie and the little Oshkosh Park.
Oh,
you know, that,
excellent.
Excellent. That was a wonderful idea. Everybody pitched in. It was a great thing.
Yeah.
Didn't cost taxpayers anything.
Yeah.
And this thing, had they gone about this in the right way, held a lot of different meetings and workshops with citizens, build some consensus, listen to what the citizens are saying, and then, you know, start moving into a phase of fundraising. And you could even get citizens involved in that. And then get the taxpayers to foot the bill for what you don't have.
Kind of like fundraising, like you're talking about, like for Titan Stadium. They went out and are getting like millions of dollars for that. And that's great. If people want to pay for that, God bless them. All the power to them.
It's called donation versus taxation.
That's right.
And that's how you make it work. You actually ask people.
Right. And I still think, as far as with the amphitheater and with other things, that's one of the reasons why I started the mayoral race, because I still say to this day, that whole amphitheater, as far as the Leach donation, and then us getting called to private meetings at C.R. Meyer within the next week, and then being on the council agenda, and 2 weeks later is where I say the public kind of got snowed because it happened so fast.
Well, and let us not forget, C.R. Meyer got the contract, and they were overbid. They were overbid.
Yeah.
So you not only did we get it once by not being asked, but then you really stuck it to us.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a joke, and again, you know, I think Leon Schaefer had a wonderful idea. I think some of these council members should be resigning. So anyway,
they're not going to give up the power that easy,
No.
people. We got to take it from them.
Then we just run them off. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Good to
Pleasure.
see you both.
Keep up the good work to you two.
Yeah, we
Thanks.
love
So-
you guys.
Anyway, thanks to our guests, and thanks to you also, as always, for joining us. We'll see you next time. Until then, take good care. We'll see you next time, and keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.